On January 11, 1971, Carolyn Perron walked into her kitchen and found her daughter standing in the corner, speaking to someone who wasn't there. Breath. The child was 7 years old. She said the woman's name was Bathsheba. She said Bathsheba had been showing her the house. Breath. The Perrons had moved in 3 days earlier. What happened to that family over the next decade was so disturbing that when filmmakers finally turned it into a movie, the family said it wasn't dark enough, that Hollywood had softened it, that the real thing was worse. Breath. Roger and Carolyn Perron were looking for a fresh start. It was 1971. They had 5 daughters, and they'd found what looked like a miracle, an 8-bedroom farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, on 200 acres of land, priced low enough that a working-class family could actually afford it. Their youngest daughter was 5. Their oldest was 15. They ate dinner together every night. The farmhouse had been in the same family, the Arnold family, for 8 generations. 200 years of history inside those walls. Breath. What Roger and Carolyn didn't know when they signed the papers was that they'd asked the realtor about the history of the house, and the realtor had told them almost nothing. Breath. The one piece of advice their nearest neighbor offered, the very first day they moved in, was this: for the sake of your family, don't go looking for what's in that house. They should have listened. The first week, things were small. Doors that had been latched swinging open in the night. The smell of something rotting with no source anyone could find, sweet and thick, like meat left in the sun. A cold that pressed against you in specific rooms regardless of the season. Breath. Carolyn kept a log. She was methodical about it. A date, a time, what happened, who witnessed it. By the end of the first month, she had 47 entries. The chickens died first. One morning, Roger went out to the coop and found every bird dead, not attacked, not scattered, just dead, arranged almost neatly on the floor. No tracks, no evidence of anything getting in. Then the clocks stopped. Every clock in the house, at 3:07 in the morning every night. They replaced them. They stopped again. Breath. But it gets worse. The daughters started talking about a woman they'd seen in the cellar. Not the way children tell ghost stories, not excited or performative. The way you'd describe someone you'd passed in a hallway. Matter of fact, a woman with no feet, they said. She just hovered above the floor. Carolyn started sleeping with her legs tucked tight underneath her. She didn't tell her daughters why. Because she'd seen her too. The entity seemed to focus on Carolyn specifically. The daughters would be touched in the night, their hair pulled. But Carolyn woke one morning with bruises she hadn't had when she'd gone to sleep. Yellow-green marks on her shins, her arms, her neck, the shape of fingers. Roger photographed them. He still has the photographs. Here's what they eventually learned about the property. The Arnold family had a history that the deed records didn't show you. Suicide, murder, drowning. Children found dead in the wells on the land. A man who hanged himself in the barn. A woman named Bathsheba Sherman, who'd lived on the property in the 1800s, who'd been accused by neighbors of sacrificing an infant, who'd died under circumstances that the town records simply described as sudden. The rumor, never proven, never fully disproven, was that Bathsheba had made some kind of agreement, and that the land was bound to it. Breath. Carolyn Perron later said she believed every death on that property for 2 centuries was connected, that the house collected them. Breath. Then in 1973, something happened that made Roger pick up the phone and call paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. Breath. Carolyn had been sitting at the kitchen table alone. The family had gone to bed. She was writing in her journal. and then she wasn't Carolyn anymore. Roger was woken by the daughters screaming. He ran downstairs and found Carolyn levitated off her chair, speaking in a voice that was not hers, not the register of it, not the cadence of it. An old voice, but wrong in a way that felt like something that had learned to imitate speech without understanding it. She was speaking in a language Roger didn't recognize. It lasted 11 minutes. When she came back to herself, Carolyn remembered none of it. And that was the most documented incident. The Warrens spent weeks in that house. Lorraine Warren later said it was the most oppressive location she ever investigated, worse than Amityville. That she felt it pressing on her chest from the moment she crossed the threshold. The family stayed for 10 years. They couldn't afford to leave. 10 years. Andrea Perron, the oldest daughter, eventually wrote a 3-volume account of what her family experienced. She's given hundreds of interviews. She doesn't sensationalize it. She describes it the way you describe something that happened to you that you cannot explain and cannot put behind you. She's in her 60s now. She still won't go back. And here's the detail The Conjuring chose to leave out, the one the filmmakers decided was too much. According to both Carolyn's journals and Lorraine Warren's case notes, Bathsheba's focus on Carolyn wasn't random. It was intimate, specific, like she recognized something in Carolyn she wanted to extinguish. Breath. The incidents escalated whenever Carolyn showed warmth to her daughters, as though that love was the thing being hunted. As though the house fed on exactly that. The Perron family finally left in 1980, not because the activity stopped, because Roger had saved enough money to walk away. Carolyn's health had deteriorated significantly during those years. The bruises, the episodes, the decade of pressure inside those walls. She carried it the rest of her life. Breath. She died in 2019 at 77. In one of her last recorded interviews, she was asked whether she believed what happened to her family was real. She looked directly at the camera. She didn't blink. She said, "I know what I lived through. I don't need anyone to believe me." Other families have lived in that house since. Some have lasted years without incident. A few have left within weeks. The current owners have been asked repeatedly whether anything strange has happened to them. They always say no. But they've never once invited anyone inside. What do you think was really living in that house? A haunting, something older that had claimed that land long before anyone built on it, or something that followed Carolyn herself? Drop your theory in the comments. I read every one. Breath. If you want to go deeper on cases like this one, Audible is offering 30 days free right now, and the horror and true crime catalog has first-person accounts recorded by people who were actually inside these stories. Some of those titles will make tonight feel like a warm-up. Link is below. Save this video for the next time someone tells you they don't believe in anything they can't explain. Let them watch it alone, at night. Breath. Subscribe so you don't miss next week. New nightmare every week, and keep the lights on.